Wait, what did you just say? I froze mid-step, the morning light catching the dust motes swirling in the half-built gazebo in my backyard. Across the open field, my cousin Caleb stood with my parents, yellowing old map in hand and grins too wide to trust. Dad cleared his throat. We sold the property, sweetheart, to Caleb. For $100. My heart stuttered. The gazebo board I held slipped from my fingers to the grass. Sold? My land? My voice cracked like thin ice. You can't just sell my land. My mother's eyes glistened with tears or remorse. I couldn't tell which. Sweetheart, we needed to settle things, and your cousin offered to keep it in the family. In the family, I repeated bitterly, for $100. My fists clenched, nails biting into my palms. This was my inheritance. You know how much that land meant to Grandpa and to me. Grandpa's land. Rolling hills that once bore sheep, now wildflowers. I'd spent my childhood there, chasing rabbits and building secret forts. When Grandpa passed last year, I was the only grandchild who loved that land as he did. I planned to turn the old barn into an artist's studio, just like he taught me, to live, create, and honor his memory. Now my parents had bartered it away. Caleb stepped forward, awkward in his skinny jeans. Look, I didn't know it was your plan. Dad said it was for sale, and I wanted some extra pasture for my cattle. We can sort this out. My jaw tightened. You're not getting pasture, you're getting an access road too, with my permission, I might add. The sheer gall of it made my blood boil. I turned to face the slight gravel track that wound through the meadow up to my property. If you think you can just stroll in with your pickup trucks whenever you like, think again. My mother reached out. Honey, please, don't honey me, I snapped. I want that contract voided. I want my land back. Dad's face darkened with regret. We can't. The papers are signed. The money was exchanged. He held up a folded slip of paper, proof of the sale. It's legal. But it's not right, I said, feeling tears sting. You promised Grandpa you'd look after it. My voice echoed over the field. You promised me. A silence closed around us. Even the breeze stilled and the lazy buzz of bees fell quiet. I swallowed hard, feeling a strange calm descend amid the shock. I squared my shoulders and met my cousin's eyes. Then you'll do me a favor and stay off my property. He blinked. But until we fix this, I said, voice low and steady, I'm blocking the access road. Later that afternoon, I drove back to town and bought construction cones, signage, and lengths of bright orange mesh fencing. At sunset, I returned with my best friend Maya. She the only person who truly understood how much Grandpa's land meant to me. This is extreme, she said, helping me pound stakes into the soft earth where the gravel ran. Cones, fencing, road closed signs. I tied the mesh across the narrow entrance. Legal or not, they're not walking through here. I stapled the signs. Private property. No access. The white text glowed against the vermilion mesh. Let's see how they like that. Maya bit her lip. Well, calm and polite didn't work. Maybe shock will. I dusted sawdust off my jeans. Shock works. I glanced at the rising moon, silvering the hills. Tomorrow I'll be at the planning office at first light. I'll do whatever it takes to reverse that sale. Maya nodded, admiration in her eyes. You're braver than anyone I know. I shrugged. Or crazier. Either way, I can't lose that land. The next morning, the local news crew was already there before I was. Bright cameras pointed at the orange barricade like hungry birds. Reporter Kate Collins approached with practiced ease. She clicked her pen. So, Lindsay Harper, can you explain why you've blocked access to this road? I took a breath, leveled my shoulders. Because my parents sold my land to my cousin for $100. I'm preventing unauthorized entry until we rectify the situation. Her eyebrows lifted. Is that legal? Probably not, I admitted. But I need attention on this. I want people to see what's happened. I glanced at the cameras, felt my heart drum. This land was my inheritance. It's part of my family's legacy. I'm fighting to protect it. The camera lights flared. And how do your parents feel about this? I turned to see them emerging from their truck. Dad wiping his forehead. Mom's eyes red. Mom swallowed and raised her voice. Lindsay, please stop this. Mom, I said, voice gentle but firm. My grandfather left me this place. It's not a pasture for cattle. It's a tribute. I can't let it go. She looked at me, torn. But Caleb only offered 100 because he thought it was abandoned. I shook my head. No one, not even Caleb, asked me. They got the papers signed without my knowledge. I glanced at the news crew, gulping down panic. I'm doing what I have to. They need to know the truth. Silence rippled as Kate lowered her notebook. Thank you, Lindsay, she said softly. That's all for now. As the crew packed up, Mom approached. If this goes viral, it'll embarrass us all. I shook my head. Better to embarrass you than lose my future. I crossed my arms. I won't move these barriers until we have a proper conversation about what happened. She bit her lip, tears brimming. We can, she exhaled, eyes fixed on the land. Okay, talk. By midday, neighbors ambled over, Mrs. Patel with croissants, Mr. Young from next door bearing coffee. Whispers trailed like smoke. What's going on? She's blocking a public road. Did her property deed say the access was through here? One by one, they gathered behind the barricade. I stood at the helm, nerves thrumming, but with Maya at my side, I felt anchored. Mr. Young cleared his throat. Lindsay, dear, is this really necessary? I met his kind gaze. I'm asking my parents and Caleb to meet me here right now to discuss a fair resolution. I want the sale rescinded or restructured. Something equitable. He frowned. Have you considered mediation? Legal counsel? I shook my head. I can't pay for lawyers right now. I'm hoping we can handle this as a family. The hum of conversation rippled. Some nodded support, others whispered doubts, but nothing stopped me. That afternoon, as the sun dipped toward the hills, my parents and Caleb arrived again. My mom's cheeks were streaked with tears. Dad looked exhausted. Caleb's stance was defensive. Let's talk, I said, leading them to a picnic table set up beside the barricade. Neighbors circled, respectful distance. I laid out maps, the original deed naming me as heir, and the sale papers dated last week. Dad buried his face in his hands. I thought we did right by everyone, split the land equally among the kids. But I never meant to cut you out. Caleb's stubborn pride softened. I didn't know, Lindsay. I just wanted more pasture. But I love that field anyway, and I see now how important it is to you. I exhaled. It's more than pasture. It's where I belonged. But maybe we can find middle ground. I pointed to the old barn. What if I convert it into a communal workshop, pottery, woodworking, for family and neighbors? We share the costs, the upkeep, and you can still use some of the land for grazing. Mom wiped her nose. And I'll donate my half of the ownership back to you, if you promise to include family usage rights. Caleb nodded. I'll cover legal fees to adjust the contract. And I'll fence my cattle out of your studio area. I felt my pulse slow. The crowd exhaled relief. I smiled tentatively. Okay, let's do it. As they agreed, I gave the nod to Maya, who carefully began to lower the orange mesh. Neighbors cheered softly. The barricade lifted. Access was restored, but in a way that honored all parties. That evening, as the sky blushed pink, I walked the meadow alone. The road lay open, tame now. I ran my hand across the tall grass, hearing the gentle rush of wind. The land felt whole again, changed, but healed. Behind me, voices drifted. Mom and Dad laughing quietly, Caleb joking with Maya. I turned to see them at the picnic table, unity reborn from conflict. I closed my eyes, breathing in the scent of earth and wild flowers, feeling Grandpa's presence in every blade of grass. The fight had been fierce, but it led us back to what mattered most: respect, understanding, community. I smiled, ripping off a blade of grass and twirling it between my fingers. Tomorrow, I'd start the workshop plans. And then just maybe, I'd build a secret studio like I always dreamed, tucked behind the old oak. The path ahead was clear, the access road no longer a battleground, but a bridge. And somewhere in that whispering meadow, I knew Grandpa was smiling. The sun had barely crested the horizon, when I climbed into my old ute and headed back to Grandpa's field. Yesterday's victory still felt surreal. The access road reopened, the barn earmarked for our shared workshop, and my family and cousin standing by my side. But as any builder knows, blueprints are nothing without blood, sweat, and a few tears on the ground. Part 2 would be the true test. By mid-morning, the site was alive with activity. Caleb's battered pickup rattled in with fence posts. Dad had unloaded buckets of paint for the barn's exterior, and Maya arrived with her pottery wheel, grinning like a kid in a candy store. The neighborhood had turned out too. Mrs. Patel brought homemade samosas to fuel our first work session, and Mr. Young rolled up his sleeves to help clear debris. I wiped the sweat from my brow, looking out over the field where, just days ago, I'd planted those neon barricades in defiance. Now there was only possibility. "Lindsay," Caleb called over. "You think Grandpa would have liked this?" He held up a splintered plank we'd hauled from the old shed. I caught the plank and ran my hand along its weathered grain. "He'd hate that it's rotted," I teased, "but he'd love that we're giving it new life." He laughed. "Fair enough." He tossed the plank onto a growing pile of reclaimed timber. "But you're right. Grandpa always said wood tells a story. Let's give this one a happy ending." By noon, the workshop was beginning to take shape. The barn's interior had been gutted, stale hay replaced with fresh floorboards, cracked windows swapped for solar glass panels, walls primed in a cheery cream. Maya coaxed the pottery wheel into the corner, while Dad and Caleb debated which side to install the woodworking bench. I slipped outside to the field's edge, pulling my phone from my pocket. The local newspaper's website had already published "Cousin Drama Leads to Communal Workshop," with photos of my barricade and a quote calling me feisty and fearless. I rolled my eyes but felt a flicker of pride. Controversial or not, people were talking. And more importantly, they were coming. I tapped the RSVP button on the community page I'd set up. First open studio day. Saturday, June 14th. Already 30 people had signed up to tour the space, volunteer on build day, or simply share coffee and ideas. My stomach fluttered. Bringing people together was always Grandpa's dream, and now, in my mid-20s, I was making it real. 2 weeks later, on opening day, the barn reborn as Harper's Forge and Clay Studio teemed with life. String lights traced the rafters, wooden tables sagged under the weight of fresh pottery and chisels. A long bench displayed cakes and chai, courtesy of Mrs. Patel. The air smelled of pine shavings and clay dust. Neighbors wandered in, marveling. Children poked at the pottery wheel, tentative hands shaping bowls. Retired craftsmen chatted over toolkits. Yoga instructors eyed the open floor for sunset classes. When the small press announced, "Studio membership now open," murmurs of excitement rippled through the crowd. I stood by the door, greeting each face. "Welcome, make yourself at home." With every "thank you" and "this is amazing," I felt Grandpa's guiding presence, as though he'd hung a quiet banner overhead. "You did good, kid." In the crowd, I spotted Dad talking to Counselor Davis, both nodding earnestly. I caught Davis's eye and gave a thumbs up. He returned the gesture with a chuckle. At the pottery corner, Maya gave me a triumphant grin. "You pulled it off," she breathed. I shrugged as if it were nothing. We pulled it off. That evening, as the last guests filtered out under a cotton-diffused sunset, the core crew, Mom, Dad, Caleb, Maya, and me, gathered over pizza in the barn's new community corner, a cozy nook of mismatched chairs and woven rugs. Mom sipped her soda. "I'm sorry it took me so long to see how important this was to you." I shook my head. "It wasn't your fault. You both thought you were doing right. But it means a lot that you stuck with me." Caleb leaned back, napkin in hand. "To be honest, I was mad at first. But working this land with you, it feels right." I never thought I'd say that about a cousin's project. I raised my slice. "To surprise partnerships," Dad grinned, "and to family legacy." We clinked pizza slices instead of glasses, laughter ricocheting off the beams. A month later, I was on the other side of the field, barefoot under the noonday sun, surveying our next project, a wildflower meadow along the southern edge to attract bees for the workshop's honey harvest. In my hand was a letter, an official grant approval for Rural Creative Hub's funding, enough to finish the fencing and install a small apiary. I sank to the grass, reading the letter again. The program coordinator praised our innovative community model and encouraged us to apply for further support. I closed my eyes, breathed deep, and whispered, "Grandpa, we did it." Footsteps approached. I looked up to see Jasmine Patel, daughter of Mrs. Patel, holding a jar of her homemade jam. "I thought you'd want to try it," she said, offering the jar. "Made with honey from the hives you'll install." I took the jar, heart soaring. It's perfect. She hesitated. Lindsay, I want to offer my marketing help. I'm starting a business degree, and this could be my capstone. I smiled, impressed. Absolutely. I could use someone who knows social media better than I do. She beamed. Deal. I stood tucking the jam into my tote. Together we wandered along the field's edge, plotting the meadow's design. Under the wide Australian sky, the land felt alive, teeming with possibility, resilience, and the promise of things to come. That night, at Grandma's house, I recounted the day's triumphs over tea and honeyed toast. She sat in her armchair, eyes shining. You've created more than a workshop, she said. You've woven the community back together. I nodded. It's bigger than me. It's about people, about roots and new growth. She reached across and patted my hand. Your grandpa would be proud. I looked out the window toward the field, where string lights glimmered like fireflies. I think he is. In the weeks that followed, Harper's Forge and Clay Studio became a hub. Teenagers apprenticed under woodworkers. Poets held open mic nights in the hayloft. Local farmers traded produce for pottery mugs. The meadow bloomed riotously, drawing pollinators and neighbors alike. Even the town's old grump, Mr. Fletcher, subscribed to a beekeeping for beginners class. Every Sunday morning, I led legacy walks across Grandpa's field, sharing stories of his childhood and our family's history. People listened, enraptured by tales of sheepdog chases and midnight bonfires. In those moments, I realized that land doesn't just belong to us. We belong to it, woven into its soil, stitched into its memory. One Sunday, while we strolled under jacaranda blooms, Mom fell into step beside me. Thank you for teaching me how to listen, she said softly. To my daughter, sure, but also to the land. I smiled, squeezed her hand. We're learning together. Years later, standing in the refurbished barn, as calendar pages fluttered into June, I watched a new generation, my own niece and nephew, skip through daisies in the meadow. The workshop's benches bore the patina of countless creases and fingerprints. The walls were lined with art, pottery, paintings, wood carvings, each piece a story, each story a testament to community, resilience, and the power of holding your ground. I pressed my palm against the old timber beam, still scarred where Grandpa once carved his initials. Beneath that, Maya had carved ours, L+M 2025, and beside it, Jasmine's J 2026. There was space still, for every hand that would shape this place in the years to come. I closed my eyes and inhaled the scent of sawdust and wildflowers, honey and eucalyptus. The land beneath my feet whispered secrets of the past and promises of the future. And I knew more deeply than ever that sometimes you must block the road to open a path, one that leads not just to property lines, but to shared legacy, to love, to home.